Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing here a deck profile for Magical Musketeers. This is going to be pretty much the debut of the deck itself. I was actually so close to putting out a deck profile for this particular deck, despite the fact that it would have been incomplete, but luckily I was able to complete the deck by getting the final cards. I'll bring it up when we actually get to them, but with that being said, I'm definitely now very excited to actually showcase what this deck can actually do here. This is quite an interesting deck, and I think it, coming from a particular special set, it is definitely one of those overshadowed kind of archetypes. You have core set archetypes which tend to be more favored by a lot of people, and as a result, a lot of these archetypes that come out in the special sets are just put to the side, and it's quite unfortunately. I mean, yes, it did actually have its time where it stood in the meta for a small period of time, but even then, it just didn't last long whatsoever. However, due to its uniqueness, I would like to actually still go over it because I think that it definitely holds a bit of merit in this particular format. And I haven't really been seeing any updated deck profiles for this particular deck for quite a while now on different channels out there, so without further ado, we're just gonna get through with this. But I would like to remind you guys to quickly drop a like, share, comment and subscribe if you end up enjoying this video, and also don't forget to hit the bell notification as well. Without further ado, let's begin. So starting off with monsters here, we're playing 3 copies of Casper, and we're also playing 3 copies of Starfire. I wanted to do these two together because of the fact that I actually had only 1 copy of each of them, so I was actually quite far off from completing them. I mean, you could see that I had 2 secrets, and well, a secret of each one, and then the additional ones that I got were actually just all ultras, so they don't even match in rarity because I had to get the ultras way after, and I had these 2 for so long, along with every single card in the deck. So because of those particular cards that I was missing, I just never was able to get to build the deck. So with that being said, it is now very satisfying to have at least 3 copies of everything. Even if they're not the same rarity, it doesn't really bother me, just because at this point I just want to be able to play the deck. However, Casper and Starfire are both the staple cards of the deck, which is also why it took me so long to build a deck. There really isn't any excuse to play any less of it. You can play less of any of the other Magical Musketeers in your deck, but when it comes to Casper and Starfire, they are both really crucial cards. This one is essentially the Searcher, and the Starfire is essentially one that allows you to special summon more Magical Musketeers from your deck. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Doc. Doc is really just necessary at 2, allows you to recycle some of your cards from the graveyard, and I definitely think it's well worth it. And then of course we're playing 3 copies here of Kid Brave. I do actually think that Kid Brave is quite a decent card. It allows you to kind of just get more cards or draw more cards, and I like that when it follows up with Kid Brave kind of looking the most like a cowboy, kind of like drawing into their muskets. But with that being said, it is definitely quite nice to actually fit these particular ratios. I've seen some people actually adjust it to have Kid Brave only at 2, but you know, it's however you want. And moving on, I wanted to include also 1 copy of Calamity and 1 copy of Wild. I've seen some deck profiles out there that have chosen not to include them, which I think it's fine, but I do want to add more variety, focusing on the Magical Musketeers, trying to stick to the pure roots of it. So because of that, I figured adding in at least Calamity and Wild would definitely be well worth it. And lastly, for a bit of disruption, we're going to be playing here 3 copies of Ash. I think it's quite appropriate. This deck allows you to activate spells and traps from your hand, even though it's your opponent's turn, so definitely quite nice. I mean, you could forget about Twin Twisters, you could forget about Cosmic Cyclone, you can forget about Night Beam, or perhaps Lightning Storm, or even Harpy's Feather Duster. I mean, all of those spell destruction cards don't even matter against this deck. So on to the spells. We're playing here 3 copies of Steady Hands, and we're also playing here 3 copies of Cross Domination, Both cards essentially act like a pseudo-honest in some sort of way. This one just weakens the opponent's monsters, this one buffs up your own monsters. So if you combine the two together, it's just so good, and it's definitely just really fantastic to be able to pull off some incredibly fun plays here. Now, you guys did recall that we were playing quite a lot of multiples in the deck, so I thought it was actually appropriate to play 2 copies of Desires. Even the 1-ofs in the deck that we were playing, it was okay if we actually got them banished because they weren't crucial. I just wanted to stick to pure roots to add more variety, but even without them they weren't as crucial, whereas it's more so just Casper and Starfire being the more important ones to focus around. So playing Pot of Desires at 2 copies, it didn't really hurt the deck in any kind of way. However, we are playing here 2 copies of Charge into a Dark World. Now, I think this is definitely a very interesting card because it came out in a very recent set, Phantom Rage, which, I mean, it's not that recent. There is already 2 sets that came after that, but even so, it's a card that I think a lot of people would definitely not consider. I think it's quite nice, and I've yet to see anyone actually try this outside of my own deck profile here. But it's like a Monster Reborn, and being able to bring out your own monsters just to go for a bit of extension plays, I think it is definitely well worth it. And of course, we're playing here the one Called by the Grave, the Monster Reborn, again an extra extension, and we're also playing here an Instant Fusion as well. We'll talk about the fusion when we get to it, but all of these are very generic cards, very good cards that definitely help the deck quite a lot. Moving on to trap cards, we're playing here 2 copies of Last Stand. I mean, you could consider this card essentially a Solemn Judgment. It will negate pretty much anything out there, which is definitely fantastic. I mean, yeah, it doesn't negate monsters, only spells and traps, but even so, I mean, this is definitely a fantastic card. Spell speed 3, and 2 copies does the job. We're also going to be playing here 3 copies of Desperado. Simply just pop 1 card your opponent controls. It's just really good. Again, for a bit of variety, I wanted to play at least 1 copy of every other trap, so Dancing Needle, Fiendish Steel, and the Crooked Crown. Fortunately, all of them are actually quite decent and definitely work out really well for the deck, so 1 copy of each one actually works out quite amazingly there. So I do like all 3 of these cards, and I wouldn't bump them up to 2 copies, but I wouldn't take them out of the deck at all either, so it's definitely quite fantastic there. And finally, we're going to be playing here triple Impermanence. I have only 1 Impermanence. I'm still trying to get the other 2, but I wouldn't necessarily consider that an incomplete deck. I mean, either way, you can still play Crackdown and get away with things. It's just that preferably you would like to play 3 copies of Impermanence, and that would definitely work out a lot better for the deck. So onto the extra deck, we're going to be playing here 2 copies of our Max. I think 2 copies is enough. This extra deck is kind of like a toolbox, so definitely just really fun, really versatile, allowing you to go for different things, and the card you need here being Max, 2 copies is really all you need to win most games. For a bit of a toolbox engine, we're also playing here the Nightmares, Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn. Definitely just helps out the deck quite a lot. We're also going to be playing here an Avramax and It Masquerina. We're playing the Anima because we could go into the Anima via the Millennium Eyes, which we bring out using the Instant Fusion. And that's the thing, if you have Instant Fusion and you're afraid of your opponents activating any kind of monster effects, or perhaps a hand trap, this will definitely work out. So it's quite nice there, allowing you to take 1 monster but then blinking away into your Anima and potentially taking another monster. And finally, we're going to be playing some Xyz monsters because we can go for some rank 4s. The Utopia package, and we also have here Baguska, just in case we're going first, and we have Castel, as well as Tornado Dragon. We don't have as many level 4s in the deck as you might think. We only have, I think, 5 copies of level 4s, but you know what, Starfire is one of them, and it could summon out the other 4s really easily, so going for any of these are definitely nice, and that's considered 1 Xyz summon since it goes into the whole Utopia package. But this is essentially it for this whole deck, so I do hope you guys actually have a lot of fun playing this here and testing out my particular build, and definitely let me know how things actually turn out. I will be doing some test hands as well, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I am really grateful that you guys have actually joined me for today. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time.